Magazine, one of our regular royal contributors, Ingrid Seward, and Diana's former dress designer, David Emmanuel. He was, of course, very close to the late princess. So, Patrick, I read your column with a lot of fascination because you're incredibly measured. You're not taking any sort of cruel approach when it comes to Camilla, but you're just making a point that I think millions of Brits agree with, that we can't forget the impact Diana had.
Well, Dan, I think it was very well timed that you should mention those polls, that only 14% are happy with Camilla being called Queen. There may be lots of reasons for that, but there's no doubt that Diana herself recognized that she would probably never be Queen, but she wanted to be Queen in people's hearts. And it's in people's hearts that this battle is won or lost.
No, I totally agree. David Emmanuel, you don't feel you can accept Queen Camilla?
Well, look, it's highly charged, the whole situation. And behind the scenes, goodness knows what's going on. But, yeah, that's what we were sold on, weren't we? I understood from Her Majesty the Queen, she said she should be Queen Consort. Now, suddenly, she's now going to be Queen. And it's very difficult because a lot of people have told me they're unhappy about it. So I'm not surprised by the polls at all. But I did hear, I don't know if you know this story, I heard that there was a coronation dinner, which obviously the King and Camilla was there. And apparently the Princess Royal, I don't know if you heard this one, the Princess Royal said, "You're not Queen, you're the Queen's consort." Did you hear that one? That's spinning around.
Wow.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Now, I'm not one to spread
Wow, that's
gossip,
a fascinating
but this is what I've heard from quite a few sources. Yep. And it was a big...
Goodness gracious me. So,
yeah, there was a big showdown.
So to clarify, you have heard that Princess Anne said to Camilla's face that you were Queen Consort, not Queen.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, I hadn't heard
So you can
that.
imagine in the Abbey, I mean, it's going to be so emotionally charged. You've got Diana's sister, the Spencers will be there, Camilla's children will be there, and what are they all thinking? What is the country thinking? You know, it's a lot of emotion, but we have to remember it's a religious ceremony, of course, and, you know, we have to remember he was being bred to be king. It was always understood he was going to be king. And there's a lot of stuff that's happening. Well, Patrick would know more than I, but...
Well, I mean, I think that's fascinating because, Dan, one of the reasons I think there is so much doubt over Camilla's status in people's minds is the kind of game of semantics that the palace has played with us over the last 25 years. You may remember, Camilla was, first of all, just a friend, and then she was a non-negotiable friend. And then, OK, she was a lover. It's hard to deny after some of the tapes we heard. But the official line then was, yes, but there is no chance that Charles and Diana will separate. And when they did separate, there's no chance they will divorce. And when they divorced, there was no chance that Charles would remarry. And if he did remarry, he wouldn't marry Camilla. And if he did marry Camilla, she would not be anything more than just behind the scenes supporting her man. And then she might be princess consort when he ascended the throne, and then she was queen consort, and now, hey presto, she's queen. They have been playing games with us. It's a series of half-truths.
Absolutely. We've been drip-fed, haven't we, really?
And of course, we should point out that the Queen, well, indeed, and the late Queen herself, on the day that she had spent 70 years on the throne, only said that Camilla would be Queen Consort. So did the Queen ever sign up to the idea of Queen Camilla? I don't know. But look, Ingrid Seward, I know you feel differently on this. You think folk need to move on and accept Queen Camilla. Why?
I think that this is what King Charles wants. He's always wanted Camilla by his side. He wanted to marry Camilla. She didn't want to marry him. But I think I mean, we might have been, as Patrick very eloquently put, we might have been diffused with all different stories. But Charles always said Camilla was non-negotiable, and in his heart, he wanted her at his side. He wants her to be crowned queen. I'm sure she's extremely nervous about this because she's very aware that there is forever a ghost of Diana, and I think she's nervous. But this is what Charles wants, and as king, this is what Charles gets, and I feel that we should, try and embrace it because they're being a modern couple. I mean, there are so many divorcees getting remarried.
Indeed. And look, I've really wrestled with this, Patrick Jepson, over the last few months. I'm not going to lie. I initially was not comfortable even with the idea of Camilla being Queen Consort, but I spoke to Paul Burrell on the show, and he said, look, by this point, Dan, Diana herself would have moved on. She would have accepted this. I mean, you obviously knew Diana incredibly well. You worked for her for years. Do you think Diana, in 2023, if she was still here, would be okay by now with the concept of Queen Camilla?
I think a lot would depend on how well her husband or ex-husband treated her.
Yeah.
In his lifetime, he wasn't terribly good at treating her well, or even with respect.
Yeah.
And I think Diana was a wise person, mature beyond her years in many ways. She understood human nature. She loved her husband. And more than once, to me, she recognized that he needed this person. And I think that Diana would have, of course, she wanted his happiness. She wanted her children's happiness. And in the fullness of time, if she was properly, respectfully treated, it's not impossible that she might have been sitting next to Andrew Parker Bowles in the congregation on Saturday. That would be a picture I would have been very interested to see. Imagine what they would have had to discuss.
What may have been, because you're very right to point out, of course, Camilla's ex-husband will be at the Abbey to see his ex-wife become queen, which is extraordinary in itself. My goodness, you three, absolutely incredible. I could talk to you all day. Thank you so much. Diana's former private secretary, Patrick Jepson, the editor-in-chief of Majesty magazine, and with all the scoops tonight, Diana's wedding dress designer, David Emmanuel. But who do you agree with? Do you accept Camilla as the new queen?
Channel that tells it like it is. No fluff, no royal propaganda, just the truth. If you're here for the unfiltered take on the monarchy and how our faves, Harry and Meghan, are always dragged into their drama, you're in the right place. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a video. And of course, if you love what we do, hit that super thanks button to support the channel. Now let's get into it. So it's coronation time and Charles is about to be crowned king. But what's the real story here? The palace and the British media have been working overtime to rebrand Camilla, pushing her from the most hated woman in Britain to beloved Queen Camilla. And yet the people aren't buying it. A recent poll revealed that only 14% of Brits support Camilla being called queen. 14%. That's a miserable number considering the media's non-stop PR campaign for her. And let's not forget, her approval rating still lags behind even Princesses Eugenie and Beatrice, who barely get any media coverage, the only people the public dislikes more. The disgraced Prince Andrew, no explanation needed, and you guessed it, Prince Harry. Because of course, standing up for your wife and walking away from toxicity is so much worse than being a known, scandal-ridden royal. Make it make sense. Now let's address the elephant in the room. Diana. This entire spectacle, with Camilla sitting on that throne, should have been Diana's moment. The people's princess, the woman the world loved, was robbed of her rightful place, and the media wants us to just forget? Never. Even former palace insiders and royal commentators are struggling to swallow the idea of Camilla as queen. Patrick Jepson, Diana's former private secretary, recently wrote about how unsettling this whole Queen Camilla narrative feels. And guess what? The palace lied for years. First, they claimed Camilla would never marry Charles. Then they said if she did, she'd just be a supporting figure. Then it was, oh, she'll only be princess consort. And now, boom, she's queen. They've played the public for fools, drip-feeding lies until people just got too tired to fight back. And don't think for a second that the royal family itself is fully on board. Reports have surfaced that at a private coronation dinner, Princess Anne, yes, and Charles's own sister, allegedly reminded Camilla to her face that she's a queen consort, not queen. Woo! Even within the palace walls, people aren't buying into the illusion. Meanwhile, the press continues its agenda, using the coronation as an excuse to drag Meghan and Harry into the mess. Because, let's be real, without them, the British media has no clicks, no outrage to stir up, and no profits. Instead of focusing on why the public still isn't embracing Camilla, They'll use this as yet another excuse to bash Harry for daring to step away. They'll say he's disrespecting tradition while conveniently ignoring the fact that Charles and Camilla trampled all over tradition to be together in the first place. And let's talk about the hypocrisy of it all. Meghan was crucified for being a divorced woman marrying into the royal family, but Camilla? Camilla, who was a known mistress, gets a coronation and a crown? Spare us! The media wants you to forget that while Meghan was called every name in the book, Camilla's decades-long affair with Charles was brushed under the rug. They're trying to rewrite history, but we remember the truth. So the real question isn't, do you accept Camilla as queen? The real question is, why does the British media keep forcing this fake fairy tale while pretending Diana never existed? Why do they continue to villainize Harry and Meghan while covering for the actual scandals in that family? And why do they expect the public to blindly support this outdated, tone-deaf institution? The Royal Sussex Squad will always keep it real. We're not falling for the propaganda, and we're not letting the palace erase Diana's legacy or continue to smear Harry and Meghan. Let's flood the comments. How do you feel about Camilla being queen? Do you buy the redemption arc, or do you see it for what it is, another palace PR stunt? Drop your thoughts below, and before you go, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that super thanks button if you want to support the channel. We'll keep exposing the hypocrisy and defending our faves because someone has to. Until next time, stay loud, stay proud, and keep those receipts handy. See you in the next one.